Good evening. Tonight, Rabbi Levertov and I, Dr. Harry Krantz, will discuss the subject, what is kosher? Kosher or kashrut does not only refer to the food we eat, but also to the things which go to make these foods kosher. In the Torah, you can find the listing of foods which are kosher. The people who are observant will adhere to all the laws of kashrut, not only in their homes, but also when they are away from home. They cannot mix meat with dairy products. They must follow a prescribed time interval before eating either one or the other. Rabbi Levertov will now go into the laws of keeping kosher in depth. If there are subjects you wish to discuss, please write to the Chabad house, and we will gladly try to answer any questions that deal with Yiddishkeit. Now I'm going to ask the Rabbi his first question. What is meant by the expression, you are what you eat?
Well, Harry, it was good that you started with this question, because you mentioned about meat and milk, but there's a whole listing in the Torah what types of animals are to be eaten and what not. Specifically, it goes into a list. It's interesting, the Torah doesn't want to elaborate only what's necessary. So when it comes to birds, it speaks about the birds that we don't eat, because there's more birds that are kosher than not kosher. When it comes to non-kosher animals, specifically domesticated animals, it goes into the animals that are not kosher rather than the kosher. It speaks about the different not kosher animals rather than the kosher ones. So you have, and if you look carefully on the types of animals that are kosher or not kosher, the majority of those that are not kosher are non-domesticated, which basically are wild animals are not kosher. And then you go into animals that are sort of birds or animals that are of prey. They eat other animals. So what you are what you eat has to do with sort of deeper. If you look a little deeper in kosher, the types of animals that we don't eat is animals that have certain types of emotions or types of midos, as it's called, types of behavior where they eat other animals. So we don't want to get their sort of nature. But generally speaking, kosher, in certain people's minds, it has to do with refrigeration, and has to do with hygiene. When God gave the Torah, it was in the desert, and it was hard to keep certain animals. They have a whole theory about pigs and so on. But the truth is, you look in the Torah, nowhere in the Torah does it say a reason.
As a matter of fact, you mentioned pigs.
Yes.
You know, I have a little story about, I was walking down the street and I suddenly saw some pigs, and they were speaking to each other.
Okay.
And one says to the other, you know, he says, if this world was all Jewish, we would be more than happy.
That's an interesting story. The fact is, you should know, I don't know if the word chazir, the word pig, in Hebrew, has a word that means like it will repeat. You know, when you go over a part of the Talmud, you called chozer or lachzor, to go over it. Rabbis say that at a certain period, God will give it to us back, that we will be able to eat pig, and that we're talking about in the times when Messiah will come and so on.
Oh, that's going to be a long time before.
I don't know.
Before my wife allows me to eat pig.
Oh, that's even when it will be permitted, I don't know if I'll run to eat it. But anyways,
That's right.
let's get down to some nitty-gritties.
Right.
I don't know how much time we'll have to be able to really discuss down to the bottom line. So let me just give some basic idea about kosher. The Torah says, number one, the types of animals. The types of animals are only those who have hooves and they're split.
Right.
So that then animals that don't have hooves that go on their paws are not kosher. We're talking about animals that go on four.
Oh,
So we're talking about, let's say, you can't hunt. Well, of course, we're not going to eat bear meat or things like that. But even in certain cultures, they do eat these things.
Right.
We eat only animals that have hooves, but also they have split hooves.
That's cows.
Cows,
And lamb.
lamb, even deer. Deer is,
Deer.
although it's not a real domesticated animal, but it's tame. And another thing, of course, remember that the pig does have split hooves.
Yeah.
Still not kosher. Has to chew its cud.
Ah.
There's a deep meaning to it that has to do with split hoof, having to do with letting in the light of God in your life, like split. There's a deep meaning in that. Chewing its cud, that everything you do, you sort of re-chew it. You don't just take it and go on, but you rethink about everything you do. It's a deep lesson, but physically it means that an animal has to chew its cud and have split hooves in order to be a kosher type of animal. And what's interesting is that the Torah lists 4 types of animals that have either split hooves and don't chew its cud, or the opposite. And for the thousands of years that we have the Torah, no one has found yet an animal outside of these 4 that have one of the signs, which shows that it's divine, that God knows all the animals and said these 4 animals. It doesn't exclude that there's no other animals, but yet we didn't find in all the islands that we found new animals that we didn't know. We didn't find an animal, either they don't chew its cud and they don't have split hooves, both, or they have both.
Right.
So that's one thing about these types of animals.
Those are the only kosher ones. That
The
we
only
know.
kosher types of animals.
Types.
Yeah. Then you have kosher types of fish, and that includes only fish that have scales and fins. Okay, so that excludes any shellfish, any crab, clams, any types of fish that don't have scales and fins are not kosher. Then you have birds. There's a whole listing of birds, and basically the types of birds that you could see is birds of prey, basically. It doesn't say that, but that's the way it's implied. Generally, mostly the birds that we do eat, we have a certain tradition going back, and then when the turkey came around, there was a big question about the turkey. Some families won't eat turkey. Some rabbi said to his children, don't, from my ancestors, some people trace themselves back to this rabbi, and they say they don't eat turkey because it's a questionable if it's in the family of a chicken or not, or if they had it or not. The other question is about a giraffe. A giraffe has split hooves and chews its cud, but we didn't go into yet what we have to do with the animal. We can't just shoot it down, and the question would be, how do we eat the animal? Okay, so we'll go back to the giraffe in a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, we have the fish and the birds and the animals. So that basically covers the types of animals that would be kosher. Types of animals. As far as vegetables and things, as long as it doesn't have fleas or worms or bugs, outside of Israel, it's not a problem. In Israel, it needs to be kosher. We'll talk about it later. if you have a vineyard or if you have a tree in your garden and it hasn't the trees hasn't grown yet for 3 years, so the first 3 years we don't eat the fruit. After the 4th year, in the times of the temple, we would take it to the temple. So for 4 years, basically, we don't eat fruit of a tree, the first 4 years. So that's basically the types of foods. Then there's another issue about wine, that wine has to be processed. The processing of wine has to be under supervision, so that also you can't just drink wine. Okay. Now that we know that a chicken is kosher and a cow is kosher, the question is, do you need to go?
How does that happen? Why is a chicken kosher and not kosher? What makes the...
Okay, so the question is, could I just go over to the store and buy a chicken?
That's right.
Or do I need to have a supervision? Now, how do I know of a supervision? You look at the package and what...
And it says so.
It has a certain symbols. There are symbols, rabbinic organizations that say you could see a circle and a U inside it, or a circle and a K inside it, or sometimes it has Hebrew words, or sometimes it says a name of a rabbi. And that will go into another time, exactly how we go about it. But generally speaking, it has to be slaughtered. The animal has to be slaughtered a certain way. The Torah says, you will eat the meat as I commanded you, and there we go into this like we spoke a few weeks ago, that there's the oral Torah. So the oral Torah explains exactly. There's a whole tractate called Chulin. It goes into the details of the slaughtering of
That's in the Talmud, right?
It's in the Talmud, right? Slaughtering an animal. So you slaughter it with a very sharp knife. They check the knife that it shouldn't have any blemishes, any bumps on it. So it happens to be the most humane way of killing an animal. You don't. There's no pain. By the time the animal feels anything, he doesn't feel anything. He's already dead.
That's what we say. I wonder what each chicken says to each other.
Well, by that time they can't say anything. But anyways,
what they see.
I haven't done it, but I have been by Kaporis. By Kaporis, we see how they do it.
We hope that it's as painless as possible.
Well, there is ways to test it. They say that even shock treatment, which is very quick, but it's very painful. It's very painful for the animals. And there were countries who wanted to sort of to make a problem on slaughterhouses, and they said no, it's not humane, and so on and so forth. And a lot of those countries, we know that they were very not humane to people. We're not talking about to animals even. Sometimes you overdo it on certain lines. At any rate, you have to slaughter the animal, and then also the Torah forbids us certain parts of that animal. It forbids us to eat or to drink or eat the blood. So not only is it while it slaughters the blood goes out, but also we soak it and salt it, and make sure that we take out all the blood. When it comes to liver, it's a different process. But generally speaking, soaking in water for a long time and salted every piece of meat. That's why you'll notice that in kosher meats there's it has some salt in it. You don't have to salt it. That is, and then there's in animals. You're not supposed to eat certain fats, and then there is also a certain nerve that you have to take out. So it's all from the Torah, different parts that we don't eat in. So there's a whole process of how they go about from slaughtering the animals in kosher slaughterhouses, and until it comes to your table or to your supermarket or to your store. Have you ever heard the word treif?
No, what is it?
Treif food.
Treif, yeah.
What is treif?
You didn't use the right accent. I couldn't explain. What is treif?
What is treif? Treif,
not kosher.
treif is not kosher. No, that's a borrowed word. You should know. It's a borrowed word. It's not a really, not
it's
really.
Not a really
No,
one.
no.
Okay.
A lot of words are. What means kosher? Kosher, again, what you said before, it means fit. But
fit and proper.
not kosher, there's a lot of things that makes a thing not kosher, but we don't go into how it's not kosher, so we say it's treif. Treif.
All right.
But it's really a borrowed word, and what is interesting is in the Torah there's a expression of treif. It says that a animal in the field that was treifa, we don't eat it, we throw it to the dogs. Now what means treif? Treifa means that another animal is attacked it. Another animal has attacked it. An animal of prey, let's say a bird of prey came to an animal, or you have a lion trying to attack a sheep or a cow and runs away. And now the animal is there, it's still alive. It's not kosher. Why is it not kosher? Because it's already potentially on its way to death. So then the rabbis say that we have a tradition that it doesn't only mean when another animal is attacking it or tore it, but also if it's torn naturally somehow. What does it mean torn naturally? If it has a certain sickness, and they have a Kabbalah tradition going all the way back to Moses, what constitutes an animal treif? What makes it that it should be considered potentially dead? A certain amount of months, how many months it would have the potential to live, and now it's still alive, but it has a potential to die. One of the things is that it has, let's say, a lung that's torn, a broken a nerve.
Not perfect.
If it has a hole, if there's other commonly questions that you bring to a rabbi is you find a needle in the pupik, in the chicken.
Is that treif?
That's the question. The rabbi has to look, and where did it fall, and where did it come? That's the question, and that's what makes the thing treif. So before you even slaughter the animal, first of all you check the animal outwardly, just to see if it's a whole animal, and if it's something is broken, a bone is broken, the rabbi has to look and see does it have the potential of living or not? Where is it broken? And if that's why we can't shoot a deer to catch it, because if you shoot it in the wrong place, it's already potentially dead, and you didn't slaughter it properly. Okay, so that's why a deer we can't catch that way. If you want to have there are farms that raise deer. If you want to catch a deer, you have to trap it somehow, and then take it and slaughter it. You can't just go out hunting. So that's treife. Treife is that it's an animal. So then, when they slaughter it, after they slaughter it, they check it, they open it up, they check the inside parts of the body, they check if the lungs are complete. And here we go into a difference between the glatt kosher and not glatt kosher. That's the real meaning. Again, another borrowed name, the word glatt kosher. Oh, this is glatt kosher, this is not glatt kosher.
Right.
It's not that it means a higher standard, but we use it now as a higher standard. In today's lexicon, today when we go out in the store and we see a piece of meat and it says on it, glatt kosher, we know that it's more reliable. But it's more reliable, meaning that the rabbis would throw away quicker things and not say that it's kosher. They not throw it away, they give it away, and they process it for not kosher. It doesn't stay in the kosher. Usually in a place, in a schlachthuis, in a place where they slaughter the animals, they have also not kosher processing. So that goes away to the not kosher processing. Let's say the hind part of the animal also goes away to the not kosher. So non-kosher consumers could have it. So glatt kosher means that they check the lungs and there's a certain holes that starts growing back. They say, well, it is growing back, but we're not going to eat it. We're going to give it to the non-kosher.
Let me ask you something.
So that's glatt kosher.
That's glatt kosher.
Okay.
But let me ask you: where is all this written, in the Talmud or in the Torah?
Well, as I mentioned before,
changes?
the word treifa is mentioned in the Torah. The idea of treifa. It says a meat that is a animal that is in the field that was treifa, that was attacked. Don't eat it. Give it to the dog. Nevela is also mentioned in the Torah.
Is that
Nevela
because they're
means
dying?
that it's not slaughtered.
Pure.
It's not slaughtered.
It's not slaughtered.
Yeah, it's not slaughtered kosherly. And
Oh,
that
no?
God, the way God, it's interesting. The Talmud, it says, what does God care if an animal is slaughtered from the neck or chopped off the head from the back?
That's a good question.
So the Torah says, the Talmud says, the only reason is because God wanted us to refine ourselves, that we should refine ourselves, our own emotions, our own selves, that we should be. God gave us commandments to do them. So it's kosher. It's kosher for someone who's not Jewish, but it's not kosher for someone Jewish. It's another way, another refinement, sort of.
Is that why many of the people here now became vegetarians, because they don't believe in slaughtering animals?
Well, there's in Torah there's place for vegetarianism in different forms. To say that we are more humane than God's law, that's not kosher. But to say that I don't feel comfortable eating an animal, or to say that I want to keep vegetarian because I'm in a situation where I live in a place where kosher food is not so available, that's also kosher. But to go and say that I'm more humane, that's a little bit of a problem.
Yeah. Well,
okay, so let's go back now, because we don't have too much time, just to go into basics of that. So I just wanted to bring out that the processing takes a lot, and that's why we find companies that deal with it, and thank God here in town lately a lot is happening with kosher. That. I mean, we had on Passover we had Randall's and H-E-B and Central Market, and everyone was trying to bring in more and more products that are kosher. Hopefully they'll do it for all year round.
And I also came across a market, which I'm not going to name, but who knows, they may be our sponsor next time. They didn't even know what it was on Passover to have any separate specialized food for the observant Jew.
Okay.
Or Passover.
Well, that's why we're here, to sort of educate them.
And maybe they'll listen to this program, and they'll bring some things in that that completely gone. Nothing. There was nothing in this particular supermarket. But I was surprised. But then, on the other hand, I was so much more surprised when I saw so much in the Central Market, and H-E-B and Randall's.
Yeah.
And
a lot of
catching on.
A lot of people are realizing also, and this is a side thing, this is even people who don't keep kosher, they realize that because there's a supervision from outside, not that it's more cleaner, but just, when you have a company that produces things and they have their own hashgacha, their own people who supervise. So when you have an outside organization looking into that, it shouldn't have any animal products in it. Let's say we didn't go into that about parv. Parv means like fruits, vegetables, and things that don't have any meats. So so a lot of people buy it just because it says parv. There's going to be a lot more to discuss about it, but meanwhile, let's just keep it down to the kosher animal. Fish, we mentioned before, is any type of fish that has scales and fins. They don't have to be slaughtered. As soon as you take it out of the water, it's considered already like slaughtered.
I see.
And it's interesting also, the less life it has, an animal, the less you have to slaughter it. So let's say a larger animal, a behemoth gasa, a big animal, an ox or a sheep or so, you have to cut through both pipes, the windpipe and the esophagus, and 1.5 at least, or 1 and a little bit over half. When it comes to a chicken or to fowl, it's just one. You don't have to do both, either one. When it comes to lower forms of life, I did mention that according to the Torah, there is a certain grasshopper that's kosher. We don't know which one it is. Some Sephardim do know which one it is, and they eat it. You don't have to do anything to it but kill it. You have to kill it before. And when it comes to fish, just taking it out of the water is what kills it. I did also want to mention about. So we have the fish, and the fowl, and the
fish, fowl,
the grasshopper, so to say, and then you have the bigger animals. Okay. Now, there's another thing that you mentioned before, which I want to mention before we finish, the milk and meat thing that you said. Parv. So there's in a kosher kitchen, you have parv, which is things that are not milk and not meat. That's like breads or cereals, cookies, if it doesn't have a milk ingredient, and eggs and soft drinks and fruits and grains and juices and noodles and vegetables. Then there's meat and milk. The Torah says, do not boil a kid in its mother's milk. That's what the Torah says. Our rabbis interpret. The Torah speaks about it 3 times. It says, do not boil a kid in its mother's milk. Our rabbis have a tradition that it means do not boil, do not cook meat and milk together. Right. And they extended it also with different rules. That not only is it do not cook it, they extended it that you don't eat it together. But the strictly adherence to how the Torah says do not cook it together. But not only not cook it, but even after it's cooked, the Torah implies that you shouldn't eat it. Not only eat, you're not allowed to cook it, you're not allowed to eat it, you're not allowed to have use from it. If you have a product that has meat and milk, you can't even sell it. And that's not in other products. It's interesting. You're allowed to use things from a pig. You're allowed to wear clothes of a pig, shoes or so, but not from a meat and milk. You can't even give it to your animals, and so on. Anyways, so this is generally, so once you have the kosher meat and once you have the kosher milk, you can't have it together. So you have in your kitchen, you have separate areas that is meat and milk, and they don't mix together. And we don't eat together. We eat a meal of milk. Afterwards, you could eat a meal of meat, but the opposite not. But you have to wait. You have to wait 6 hours.
6 hours before
after you eat meat and you want to eat milk, you have to wait 6 hours because meat takes the digestive system longer, and also it gets caught between your teeth.
And what about if you have milk?
Milk, regular milk is even almost like it depends how digestive it is. If it's hard cheese, real hard cheese, the 6-month cheese, you have to wait 6 hours.
Otherwise, you don't have.
Otherwise, you basically. There's different customs, half hour, an hour, whatever. Okay, so I think we covered.
Whatever it says on the label.
Label. Okay, I would like to thank you, Harry, and I'm glad you were back.
And I'm glad to be back.
And the reason why we spoke about kosher, because a few weeks ago my father spoke about kosher types of animals that are used for the process of making tefillin and mezuzahs. So that's why we thought kosher is the next topic.
Well, now we get down to eating. So that's the next topic.
Okay, l'chaim. If anyone wants, you could write to us, and we'll discuss next time other matters. Let's hear from you. We have our website is right on the screen, and you could write us also to our address.